So, good morning guys. This morning I received some filters from Freewell. They've sent me these to try out. I had an email from a gentleman called Tony, in the marketing side, and they'd watched my video and said, well, one of my Mini 3 videos, and said, would I like to try some out and, you know, show the audience or whatever, see what I thought of them. Well, ND filters for years I've only ever used in photography, never really for video, because I didn't really do video much. So it was a case of, you know, I used to use them for like an ND 1000 or whatever for long exposures on waterfalls and things like that, and on a bright day, maybe even lightning if I needed a longer exposure, stuff like that. So anyway, they've sent me some different ones, and an all-day pack and the polarizing ones and stuff like that. So they're really quite well made, and they don't change the weight of the drone enough to make it illegal as such, if you know what I mean. So it's still under 250 grams. They look really good. So we've got an ND4, ND8, ND16, 32, 64 and 1000 in there. They have magnetic cases as well, which is really good. And then you've just got one which is just a normal UV filter as well. The polarizing kit has NDs in it as well, and also there's one that's just a polarizing filter, which is great for glare, things like water. Should give us slightly bluer skies and things like a bit more contrast and everything. So these are quite cool. So I've got up to ND4, 8, 16, 32 and 64 again, and then just a plain polarizing filter. And you can adjust these. They've got like a vertical and horizontal markers on them, so it means obviously if you're shooting a lot with the Mini 3 anyway, obviously you can rotate it to portrait, so it allows you to have it kind of the right aspect for the filter to work. So that's really cool. Anyway, I'm going to try, it's really bright already, so I'm probably going to stick on a 64 ND64 and see what the shutter speed is, because I've seen many videos and it's always the double your frame rate, sorry, double your shutter speed for your frame rate with video. That's the old rule, isn't it? So I think you can go up to, say if it's a 30, you can go up to about 120 and you'll still get a little bit of motion blur, which is obviously an important thing. So when you're flying high, it's never really going to be an issue because nothing's really moving that much. But when you start flying low down along like this grass here, for example, so if I show you, so if we fly low across this meadow, and you can see all the grassy bits and everything, and I'm flying less than a metre above it and I'm doing 20 miles an hour, everything's going to be rushing past. Well, if you're at which the drone, I've just taken the drone over to catch one of the little buggies driving around. It was all dusty, so 1/32 hundredths of a second, can't speak, it's too early, so 1/32 hundredths of a second shutter speed, which is miles too high. So everything is super sharp. So when you're flying along at 25-30 miles an hour, everything is super sharp. So you could actually pause it, and in theory you could take an image from that. If your shutter speed is a lot lower, ideally we kind of want 1/60th of a second, 1/90th, 1/20th, something like that. That will give us a real nice slow blur. Will actually make things look a bit faster, but it also will give us a less harsh looking video, and it should look a lot more natural. So yeah, natural motion blur. Someone was showing you how if you do that in front of your face and you look at your hand, when you do that, everything's sort of a bit blurry. You can't see your hand like going tuk, 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 like that. So that's kind of the difference, you know. You can like that, or you know, so that's the huge difference in it. It just gives you a more natural look. You don't need these all the time, you know. If you're flying early morning and it's quite dull, your shutter speeds are going to be down that way anyway, so you probably don't even need one. Polarizing filter is quite handy on some respects, like I say with glare, especially if you're over water. You can actually see through it a bit better, and it'll get rid of reflections and things. Big buildings maybe, lots of glass and stuff like that could help reduce the glare off the glass. But yeah, so I'm going to put these on and see. So we're going to start off with an ND64. I might even stick the ND 1000 on, but the problem is with that, you're probably going to have to turn your ISO up. So if you're going to do with the ND 1000, it will be quite good for hovering over moving water. So either a waterfall or the sea, the tides coming in and out, you know, the waves. You could hover up there looking straight down, for example, or slightly side on. crank up your ISO so you can see through it, and then adjust your shutter speed to whatever you need to be, and then drop your ISO back down for however long the shutter speed you need to do, and it will give you that motion in the ocean, should we say, in a photograph. So that the ND1000 is for photos really. Everything else is for video. I mean, you could use an ND64 in the evening, I suppose, as the light is starting to go. But yeah, I was really impressed actually how well these are packaged and everything. I haven't done an unboxing because it's just silly. There's a very noisy buzzard behind me somewhere, or a couple of them, making loads of noise. But yeah, so I'm gonna go and play. So there we go, got one of the ND64s on. That is easy, it comes off, you just rotate them very easily, but they're so small and little, I dropped mine straight away. It's a really quite thing, but you get a cleaning cloth in each packet. You get a cleaning cloth, and actually they are coated with something very slippery. So it's a little bit like Rain-X I use for my car, very, very slippery. So my fingerprint mark came off with the cloth that's in the bag. So let's go and see what my shutter speed changes to now. So I didn't record the first little flight I did, but it'd be interesting to see our shutter speeds in a minute once we've messed around and flown around a little bit. It's so warm, but it's a little bit of a breeze today actually, but I think it's just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and yeah, who knows. Don't even turn that on. There we go. So yeah, anyway, cut that little bit out. It's embarrassing. Sometimes I find with the Mini 3 it seems to be that you push it once, push it again, hold it. It doesn't always seem to initialize first time. Maybe it's just me, don't know. But anyway, we are now looking, we're in auto. Shutter speeds now need to be, so 3200, which is what I had it at. That's screen record. So at the moment my view is that in the ND64, sorry. So let's drop the shutter speed down to 1/60th. Actually, that might be alright. We shall see. But yeah, we're going to take her off. As we should see, if it's any better or not. I can't believe how, one thing I have noticed is how the air temperature changes the sound of this thing. It's hovering at the moment, we're quite close to the ground, but it doesn't sound the same when it's up a bit further. When I brought it in a minute ago, it was much quieter, but a deeper sound. So anyway, I'm gonna take this back down and do the same run I did a minute ago. We should see, hopefully, that it's actually a lot smoother, because my shutter speeds are a little bit more correct. So bring her down, and we'll do the run like I just did when it goes along and up and over into the fields that way, and we'll just see what happens really. Let's take her out in the field a little bit more, but it's something that going up. Oh, bird, don't want to hit that. But it should hopefully look a little bit better in respect to smoothness on lower ground, and I like flying lower down and with more detail in my flying. So if I'm flying, I quite often fly low and close to stuff that, you know, is a bit more interesting. So Anyway, let's bring around. So actually, I'll tell you what, even just on screen it looks a bit smoother when I did a 360, so well, 180 or whatever. Just turned around and it just looks a lot smoother compared to a bit of a jaggedy sort of look. So we shall see what. Oh, hello, Mr. B. What are you doing? Oh, just flew straight into the fence. Strange insects. But yeah, nice little. I don't know if you can hear that. It just sounds. If you can appreciate that. It just sounds a little bit deeper in sound compared to what it does normally. I mean, they're not, compared to the original Mini and the Mini 2, it's a lot less buzzy, but it does sound cool. But yeah, it's just bizarre. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop that recording. I'm going to put it in auto and see how that actually reacts to that. The exposure is at 0, so the exposure compensation is at 0. So in theory, it should be pretty good. It just sounds a little bit deeper in noise. I mean, it's got rubber tips on the blades. So in theory, it should just be the density of the air, I guess. I don't really know. To me, it just sounds a little bit deeper the noise than normal. I think I'm going to fly it along the gallops here and see what that looks like, because in the shade it might look quite cool. What we've got left on this battery, 19 minutes. So I'll do a little bit of a flyby. This is all experimental, but this is my friend's stable yard. They've got a nice, beautiful stable yard, and I've been flying around for a while up here. Done lots of photos for them and stuff over the years. So let's fly low and see how this looks. Hopefully a bit of motion blur. So, landed it, didn't crash it, that's good. Flying along, hopefully be able to see the difference between having the ND64 on and obviously no filter, because my shutter speeds were hugely different. And that's what it's all about. So you don't necessarily need an ND filter. Most people are flying quite high, quite slow. But it's when you start flying low, like I said before, when you start flying low along low level ground and you've got things passing you quite quickly, you'll see it looks a bit more jagged, and you'll see the ground looks a bit more jagged. You want a bit of motion blur. It's a bit like when you see things like Top Gear and things like that, or anything to do with cars or anything like that. When you see the cars come cruising past, there's always a bit of motion blur, and it just makes it look so much nicer to the eye. You know, it's a natural looking thing, you know. So that's where they're important. Not necessarily all the time, like I said, but there's polarizing one we're going to do now. So we're going to try the I'll try the ND64 with the polarizer and see if there's any color difference or anything like that. So we'll try that out. Horizontal. So butterfly straight in the face. I don't know if you can see there, because I'm not sure how close you can go with the GoPro. But you've got a V at the top there and a H for horizontal. We'll leave it in a H for horizontal. But obviously, if I was to turn the camera into vertical mode for portraits, I'd rotate it the other way. 95% of the time I shoot this way, because I like to do landscape stuff, really, you know, in that orientation. So for video anyway. So obviously odd photo I might do portrait, but yeah, we'll try this out. There's no water here, unfortunately, no lake or anything, so I can't really show that, but hopefully the skies might look a little bit more blue and nice. We shall see. I'm just going to swap batteries, because I like to cycle my batteries a little bit, just to keep them going through stuff. Plus it takes away the heat, that's quite a hot battery now, especially when it's pretty warm out here. So we're going to take it up. I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. I know it's very boring, and I might fly up over that way a bit as well and just see what's what, really. See what my phone said. She's back on. Cool thing about it is when you put a new battery in, I haven't turned the controller off. I've just turned it on now. She's straight there. We're up to 25 satellites already, so it's within less than 10 seconds, I would say. It's just got to mark its position. Takeoff permitted, so it's super fast in that respect to get ready to fly again with a new battery on, which is great. I mean, so yeah, absolutely wicked. I have got a landing pad, because some people are going, you shouldn't take off on the ground, but there's no dust there at all, literally nothing. It's a dust-free area, luckily. And now I've got filters and stuff, it's not really an issue anyway. So but yeah, so let's go and set the camera. So at the moment it's showing actually underexposed slightly, but that's might be just because of that shadow there. But what's it showing now? Still minus 0.3, so a little bit underexposed, which is fine. We'll do another little low fly. We shall drop it down a bit, actually, to 1/80th of a second, just to see if that sky looks any different. But it does, to be honest, it does look really hazy anyway. In fact, actually, I'm not going to change my settings. I'm still going to keep it at 60, because that's a fair comparison to everything else, just to show you guys what's what. So let's fly it nice and fast. In fact, go sport mode, and that should shit the bed. That's quick, with no avoidance things then. But that just shot off like a missile. I mean, it looks beautiful, the view anyway. So let's do that same flight. Then we're over. But again, as I rotate, you should get a little bit of motion blur with no drama of any jaggedy sort of looking views or anything like that going on with because of the shutter speed. I mean, it just shows you the difference. If you think about it, I was up at 1/3200th of a second shutter speed before, and now I'm at 1/60th. So that's a huge difference. We're now showing overexposed by a little bit, but I think, you know, we can adjust it a little bit. But it's really hazy out here anyway now. But I just wanted to see what it was like. Obviously got to test these filters out a little bit, and you know, it's just nice to be able to do something like this. It's quite breezy luckily today, but I think it's going to get hotter. It's a really warm wind. The UK at the moment is sort of, well, I don't know, some people are being very their usual British thing of taking the piss, which is funny because it is hilarious. But then you've got people going, you know, it's scary, it's this, that and the other, but it's not to do with necessarily the air temperature, it's to do with actual direct sunlight heat. There's a golf course over here, and it's looking very yellow. Anybody crazy enough to be playing this morning? Is that just someone doing the lawn? Looks like it. It's just quite funny. The beautiful woodland that goes for quite a long way. Now, a couple of photographs to see what this actually looks like compared to the colours and stuff like that. That's, does it change the colours a little bit? Who knows? I mean, who knows? But yeah, like I say, I mean, I'm shooting in a flat profile as well at the moment, so once we convert this back into a non-cine, you know, colour grade and everything, it should look quite good. Moon's looking cool. With the new firmware update, it seems to be behaving itself. Seems to be. No dramas whatsoever. Where I had the black screen of death and I had no idea what was going on, I can now, well, I've not had any troubles whatsoever. So guys, on the left hand side you've got no ND filter, on the right hand side you've got the ND64, and it may look okay on the one on the left, but actually I'll go much faster on the right because I put it into sport mode, so I'm already up over the Barney bit there compared to the other one. So that's how much smoother it is as well, even at that speed. And if you pause the video, you'll be able to see on the right hand side is still motion blur, and on the left hand side it's nice and sharp, due to the shutter speed differences. So, and also look at the colours. There's no colour grade, it's exactly the same settings as before, and the colours should look the same, but obviously the ND filter really helps with the colouring. What this looks like, because really interesting how an ND filter does change the way things look, and it's more the fact, like I said before, when you're flying low. So when you're flying low across grass or through along a road or something like that, where you've got lots of textures that are moving really quickly, one, it makes it look faster, and two, it just gives it a smoother look. So we should see. Let's bring us into land and then head back, because it's now, I think, closer to 30 degrees. These operating temperatures on this drone are, I think, up to 40 degrees Celsius, but you're pushing your limits, if you know what I mean, in that side of respect. If you are you're bordering the limits, aren't you? And it's hot. It's a hot day. So yeah, you don't really want to be pushing it too close to its limits at all. So yeah, it's not going to do it much good. Anyway, that is that. So guys, I hope that was a little bit interesting. A very big learning curve for myself this morning, because, like I say, I haven't really done that much video before in the long term. I did know about the differences in shutter speeds and stuff like that, but utilising ND filters in video for me is quite new. For photography side of things, not new. But as you can see here, the colour is really nice straight out of the camera, and that's on the flat profile. So with the ND filter there, it's really helped give it, you know, well, actually the polarizer in as well. So the ND polarizer filter one, yeah, just gave it a nicer colour. You can see it's a bit hazy up the top of the picture there. That's just because the sun was super bright. But yeah, I'm very pleased on how well they work. I've only tried a couple out, obviously due to the time I had, and also the fact that how bright it was. So you pick the one for the moment in need as such, due to your available light, and go and have a play. So I want to take over some water next, so I will go down to the beach and maybe out to a lake or something and see how the polarizers work and see how much glare you can remove and things like that. So don't forget to click the subscribe button, little notification bell as well. All of the links for the Freewell ND filters and polarizers will be below. I'll see you soon.